Chuck Blair here. Great to have you joining me this morning. And today we're talking about sort of an old, ancient human challenge, which is the challenge of idolatry. So the title for today is Letting Our Strange Gods Go, because a lot of us have pretty strange gods, idols, idolatry, things that we quote unquote worship, put on a pedestal, hold up high, venerate, that are not terribly healthy, that are not great things to have in our lives. And, today's just a call for a little more balance. Now, I want to start out by saying certainly a service like today is not about shaming people because we all do it. I mean, that's the part of the Bible. It's these warnings against idolatry are not there as in like, don't ever do this. They're there because, well, you're going to do this. So how about you think about not doing this? So it starts with that. And we all have certain things that we put up, front and center in our lives and we value above all things. And sometimes those are really good and sometimes they're not. And sometimes you can have ones that are partially good, but taken too far, all of a sudden they become an idol and actually start to be very restrictive and very, I would say degrading of our life experience. Just a silly one. I think one of the ones I'm prone to, I'm sure many of you are prone to as well, is like sports idolatry, where we can take a team or a personality or a sport, and we hype that up to be like the most significant thing in the world is this. Well, you can see where that can go a little bit too far. I think you can imagine that pretty easily. So, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into just what from a Christian Youth Church perspective, the three main sort of universal idols, like how idolatry can look, just in a generic sense. And again, we may wrestle with all three. We may wrestle with just a couple. We may wrestle with none. But these are just what they say are what Manuel Swedenborg held as the universal categories of it. He said there are three universal categories of idolatry. The first is love for ourselves, think narcissism. The second is love of our worldly advantages, in other words, materialism. And the third is love for sensual pleasure. In other words, it's just all about feeling physically good, whatever that physical goodness feels like. Now I want to say with a lot of these things, the challenge is that when they become idols, clearly, we want to have people should have like a basic love of self, and again, an appropriate love of self is far more about self-confidence than a sort of blown up, inflated ego view of self. And all these, and again, like having material things, again, not a problem, but it's a means, it's not an end. We have to keep it in perspective. And it's the same with sensual pleasures. Like I love a good glass of wine. Well, that's a really positive thing, except for if you struggle with being an alcoholic, then probably not such a good thing. And so this idea, folks, of idolatry, a couple of things I was thinking about with idols is that we tend to create them as a statue, right? And you think about that image, like we tend to try to freeze them like, this is my idol. This is what I hold. Very different than a living, breathing view of God. That's a little aside. And then we put them up on a pedestal. We literally put them higher than ourselves so we can venerate them. That also is a problem. Things we put on pedestals are not things we tend to look at in a critical way. They're not things we tend to relate to. They tend to be things that we sort of push out there and just kind of hold up. And the part of it here, folks, is that an idol will do this. An idol will promise things, promise more and more and deliver less and less. It's just like an addiction that way. Or promise more and more, deliver less and less. And just take any number of different things. Like if we take, for example, let me pull one up here. Um, just material advantage, just stuff, and enjoying fill in the blank, whatever thing in particular you enjoy. Well, we put that as an idol, then we put up there owning stuff becomes an idol, and we place that above ourselves. It's no longer a relational thing. We're no longer asking why do we own this thing, or what's the purpose of this thing, or what's the use of this thing, would be more of a Christian New Church way of saying it. But we just have the thing as the thing. And we venerate that, we venerate that, we venerate that. But there's never this critical relational question. There's never this back and forth about what is the use for it. So what I would ask would be that we all think about, like, with these idols, take them off of the pedestal. Maybe that's the trick. And to see all the things in our life, like, they're there for a purpose. And what is the useful purpose of them? Don't make them ends in themselves, because when they're ends in themselves, that's where we end up worshiping strange gods that really make no no sense in a certain way. And life is so much more than just that. It's about enjoying these things that God's given us to enjoy, but enjoying them in appropriate ways, enjoying them in a balanced way. And the great Socratic mean, as the old philosophical statement would go. And where do we end up? Well, there's a beautiful part that Reverend Jonathan Rose put out there that I love. He talked about the Ten Commandments, and there's this beautiful command that you will have no other gods before my face. In other words, no idolatry. And what beautiful, beautiful statement. And Jonathan, once in a sermon that I heard, he offered this beautiful point. He said, "Oh yeah, just imagine the world where you finally get to a point where, oh yeah, there's no other gods before us. There's just God. We're not enslaved to holding up an addiction on a pedestal, or holding up our certain forms of materialism on a pedestal, or holding up sort of a narcissistic ego need that will never be satiated, holding that up on a pedestal, or whatever." And that's such a beautiful part, because then then the field is open. Then we've let go of our strange gods, the field is open, and we're really able to relate to other people. Because idols, in the end, maybe they're just a big old distraction that we can live without. So takeaway is really simple, folks. Like, whatever strange god you tend to be worshiping, quote unquote, tend to be putting a lot of energy into, just think about taking it off its pedestal. Think about right sizing it. Think about allowing it to have its right place in your life. And sometimes that right place means no place. Sometimes it means a different place. But just think about that. Think about how that works in your life. Hope that makes sense, friends. And what we're going to do now is, we're going to do a little meditation, a little prayer, a little blessing. So I'd ask you all to just join me in a big breath here. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I. Be still and know. Be still and. Be still. Be. Our Father, who art in the heavens, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so upon the earth. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you, bring you peace, and bring you home. Amen. All right, dear friends. Well, listen, have a great rest of the day. And yep, we'll see you tomorrow. I just want everyone to know I'm headed out to California. Many of you know our dearly beloved Carl Parker. I'll be part of his funeral service out there. That will be on Saturday, but I'll be flying out tomorrow. But we will have archived versions of this. We've already pre-recorded them. So you'll see those pop up on your screens tomorrow morning. So thank you, folks, for joining me. God bless. See you when I return. Bye-bye.